Welcome to Feeding Horses, sponsored by Tribute. Electrolytes are one of those topics horse owners hear about constantly, especially right now during the summer, but there's still a lot of confusion about what they actually do, when horses truly need supplementation, and how to use electrolyte products effectively and safely. To help us with all of that today, I'm talking with Dr. Michael Lindinger, a professor at the University of Guelph and president of the Nutraceutical Alliance. We'll discuss the science of electrolyte balance in horses, what happens when horses sweat, and the practical steps horse owners can take to support hydration and recovery. Dr. Michael Lindinger, welcome to Feeding Horses.
Well, thank you very much, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, we are in the grips of summer, where many horse owners are told that they need to add electrolytes to their horse's feed. And I'm sure many horse owners are familiar with electrolytes, or at least the word, but I'm willing to guess a lot of people don't really know what they mean. So could you explain to us exactly what electrolytes are and what they do in the horse's body?
Sure. Yeah, electrolytes is a general term for molecules that are actually ions, which means they have a positive charge or a negative charge in our bodies. So things like sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, magnesium, those are all ions, but they're also electrolytes. And electrolytes, for the most part, they dissolve in water, they dissolve in our body fluids, and they are the things that allow electrical impulses to travel throughout our body through membrane potentials on muscles and nerves and so on. So we can take in electrolytes orally from foods or from supplements because our bodies don't make electrolytes. They have to be taken in from the external environment. And so they're very important. And without proper electrolytes, the right balance of electrolytes in the body, we can't even maintain hydration. We will either be overhydrated or underhydrated, and our muscles and nerves and brain won't function properly. So they're really important in terms of maintaining whole body balance, ability to do everything, performance, physical performance, mental performance, everything.
Are there any of those electrolytes that are more important than others in the horse, or are they all equally necessary?
Well, they're all necessary, and it's hard to say that one is more important than the other, unless you're talking about a specific thing. So if we're talking about, for example, hydration outside of cells in our bodies, then sodium would be the most important one. Sodium, and then the other one, chloride, because those are the two electrolytes that really help maintain what's called extracellular fluid volume. If we're talking about inside cells, then we have to look at potassium. Potassium is the main electrolyte that's found inside our cells, including muscle cells. So it's very important for performance and membrane potentials. Things like calcium and magnesium are very good they're very important for stability of nerve and muscle membranes. And if they're out of balance, then we have then we have muscle fasciculations, we have cramping, we can have tying up. So all of those things sort of work together, and balance is important between them all if we want to keep everything working well.
And when it looks like the horse is drinking enough water, let me rephrase that. Why can a horse look like he's drinking enough water, but still not fully replacing what he is losing, like in sweat and losing the electrolytes?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and this is also a relevant one for people, and it's the reason why electrolyte supplements were developed for both people and for horses. When we sweat a lot, we have to frame it in the context of sweating a lot, and when we sweat a lot, we lose a lot of electrolytes in our sweat. Not just water. We lose water, but we also lose a lot of electrolytes. And if all we do to try to maintain hydration is drink water, we end up diluting what's left in our bodies. We end up diluting the electrolyte concentrations that are inside our cells and in our blood and all the other extracellular fluid. When the kidney sees this dilution, it doesn't like it because it senses this as a dilution. And to deal with what it perceives as a volume overload, the kidneys start excreting that water. And the only way it can do that is with more electrolytes. The only way the kidneys get rid of water is with electrolytes as osmotic. And so you can end up actually getting more dehydrated by drinking water that's out of balance with electrolytes. Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but this was shown very clearly in some human studies, and we don't want to try doing this with horses.
No, definitely not. But are there certain types of horses that are at more risk for an electrolyte depletion or imbalance?
Yeah, so horses that are in heavy work, they're sweating a lot, or they're being transported for more than an hour. They're training for more than an hour. They're in competition for more than an hour. Those horses are at fairly high risk. So horses doing an hour of moderate intensity work in a warm environment, talking, 75, 80 degrees, they will lose 15 to 20 liters of fluid through sweating in that 1 hour. And that sweat has a very high electrolyte concentration. Horse sweat's very different from human sweat because we have the ability to reabsorb ions in our sweat glands. Horses do not. So if anything, horse sweat actually has more ions in it than the proportion that's found in extracellular fluid, for example. So it's called what they call hypertonic. It's strong. So that's a real challenge for horses when they lose that much salt, that much electrolytes. And a lot of horses that are doing endurance work or 3-day eventing, they're in cross-country phase of eventing, they're exercising for, minimum of 1 hour, maybe after transport, 2 hours. Endurance horses are out there sometimes for 12 to 24 hours, the less elite ones. Your elite endurance horses are exercising for 6 to 7 hours. And the only way you can do that and be safe is with electrolyte supplementation. Horses are incredibly tolerant. They can lose a lot, but they will suffer.
And we all think about electrolytes in the summertime, but what about the winter? Do they come into play then as well?
Yeah, they do come into play, particularly, a lot of horses are continuing with training and competition through the winter. Even dressage, horses sweat a lot in dressage, and a lot of training and competitions are going on for an hour, particularly training sessions. And if you're transporting, for an hour and then you're competing, then it's really important to look at balance. So even in the winter time, with transport in the winter, a lot of people close up the trailers, and a horse is generating so much heat.
They do.
Just from postural movements. It's moderate intensity muscle contractions during all that time. And if you go in the horse box in the trailer in the wintertime, it's a lot warmer.
It is,
and the horse can be sweating. So even, one has to consider not using a blanket on horses in the wintertime so that they can actually thermoregulate effectively. So you have to be really careful. We have a tendency to think that horses feel the way we feel.
Yeah.
And it's just not true with respect to a lot of things that we have been traditionally doing, including the use of blankets on horses.
Yeah. They prefer the cold a little more, certainly than I do. I know that.
Yeah, me too these days, for sure.
So you mentioned traveling horses or even horses in competition, or not necessarily competition, but just even away from home, even if they go on a trail ride somewhere away from home. What kind of concerns would there be if the horse doesn't drink well, either hauling or they don't like the water away from home, that sort of thing?
Well, the concern is that they get very seriously dehydrated. I remember we had one horse that transported from South Ontario, where I live, to South Saskatchewan for a Pan Am 100-mile ride.
Okay. Yeah.
And when it arrived on site, it was massively dehydrated. It was down about 6 to 7 gallons of fluid from what it was. We had measured it before it transported to Saskatchewan. So we did all kinds of things to try to bring it back over a 2-day period before competition. And it did compete, and we had to pull the horse after the first 20 or 25 miles. It was, you just couldn't recover.
Yeah.
So massive dehydration is a consideration. But even moderate dehydration, if you are down 1 gallon of fluid, that's water with all those electrolytes, that's going to impair mental performance, and it's going to impair physical performance to some extent. Not a lot, but it's incremental. So horses can easily tolerate that. And that horse was a big horse, and it sure tolerated a loss of 7 gallons.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But just because it could tolerate doesn't mean it's good. It was actually quite bad.
Yeah.
So the concern is the dehydration, the chronic dehydration, which puts it off appetite, which, is, the behavior is just listless. There's just, and they're at risk of all kinds of issues, let alone performance concerns. Yeah.
Well, what are some of those behavior or physical signs that owners can look out for in a horse that might be dehydrated or, have an electrolyte imbalance or something like that?
Yeah. So the easiest things that you can see is that they could be panting a little bit.
Yeah.
Short, rapid breathing. They're listless. Their head's down. Their ears are back, and they're just really not in the game. They're a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty obvious. Those sorts of things. The other thing you might see is that some regions over the muscles could be fasciculating, really fast, rapid contractions.
Oh, okay.
So that's usually showing that there's some imbalance of calcium and magnesium together with dehydration. So we see this in endurance horses a fair bit. So those are those things you can do, for quick tests on dehydration. You can do what's called a capillary refill test or skin tenting. And when you do those, you should get within 2 seconds a return of the normal skin tone or coloration on the gums.
Right.
Anything longer than that, that's a sign of dehydration.
Okay.
Yeah.
And most people will provide their horse either a salt block or some loose salt. That's pretty commonly known to do that for horses for free choice. But when is that enough, and when do you need to consider adding additional electrolytes?
Yeah, so salt blocks and mineral blocks, those are good things. And I think they should always be available, and horses go to them when they need them. They know when they need them. They don't just go to it because they like it. They actually, their body senses that they need it. But we also know when, or we should know when, our horses need additional. And so that's our job. We need to educate ourselves so that we know when our horses need more. So they need more when they're going to be working. So if you have, a pasture horse, and all it really does is sit in the pasture, the paddock, most of the day, and it has access to food and water, and you're only riding it, a couple of times a week, and it's not being transported, you don't need to supplement with electrolytes. It's going to get what it needs from the diet, from the salt block. It's going to be fine. So when you need more is when the horse is training, when it's exercising for more than an hour, it's starting to get into some of these big losses. And when that happens, you want to provide electrolytes either directly into wetted foods, wetted hay, wetted grains, so lots of water. Those electrolytes can be put right in there, or they can be put into just water and the horse trained to drink that water that has electrolytes in it, which is something we should talk about a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are the best ways to do it. So with heavy competition horses, the horses that are competing in eventing and endurance, you will want to train horses to drink electrolyte solutions and not just provide electrolytes with wetted foods, because they need that extra.
I'm going to get back to that in a second, but is there any preference to loose salt over a block? Or is that maybe like what the horse prefers, but does it really matter as far as what you're offering to the horse?
When loose salt's offered, it's usually it's thrown in by the hand into the feed. So it's just top dressed, and usually with wetted feeds, and that's fine. That way the nice thing about that method is that you know how much you're giving your horse.
Okay.
Whereas if it's a block, you really don't know what they're getting. They're probably getting enough.
Yeah.
But if you want to know how much your horse is getting, then you can throw in some loose salt. And ideally, that should be a balanced electrolyte salt. So it should be not just sodium chloride or potassium chloride. It should be sodium, potassium chloride, magnesium, calcium. At least those 5 main electrolyte minerals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've got a horse that is getting ready for a competition or a traveling or something like that, is it best to give some supplement ahead of time, or do you focus on replacing it after the fact?
Yeah, so we've done testing on thousands of horses over something like close to 30 years. And based on that experience, we know that the gut, the GI tract of the horse, acts as a bit of a reservoir to provide and replace water and electrolytes that are lost through sweating. So we advocate for allowing the horse to drink or giving the horse electrolyte solutions 1 to 2 hours before they start, so that reservoir is there in the stomach and in the intestinal tract. So the stomach of the horse is about 8 liters. It's a couple of gallons, 2.5 gallons. And so that's a pretty big volume. And it does take 30 to 60 minutes to empty that volume into the upper GI tract. And it's the upper GI tract where all of the absorption of water and electrolytes is occurring.
Okay.
Later on in the large colon, you can also get some absorption of water, but that's hours later. That literally is like 6 hours down the road. So by providing electrolyte solutions early on, before competition, before transport, you're providing that reservoir for replacement so that the horse can stay in balance and not first get dehydrated and then try to replace. So the whole idea with the strategy is to try to maintain and not try to allow dehydration to occur and then fight back to try to rehydrate. Fighting back to rehydrate is a challenge, particularly when the horse continues to transport or is continuing to compete in endurance type events.
So you had mentioned putting some in soaked feed or dissolving, or adding it to water. And you mentioned training a horse to drink electrolyte water. How do you train a horse to drink electrolyte water?
Yeah, so as you know, most horses, when they get introduced to something new, they're a little bit shy of it. They're a little bit averse. So if you just take your electrolyte solution and you make it up as per the manufacturer's recommendation and add it to the water, the horse, and you have a choice of the water it was drinking and that electrolyte solution, the horse will sniff it, but it will almost always just go to the water and drink it.
Right.
Then if you take that water away and leave only the electrolyte solution, the horse is still not going to drink that electrolyte solution.
Yeah.
And it's a hot summer day and it's sweating, even though you might not see sweating, it's sweating at an accelerated rate. Anyways, it still is losing water and electrolytes. And it's not drinking because it doesn't like the taste of it. And it's just stubborn. So the approach is to use maybe 20% or 25% of the strength of the electrolyte. So put in a quarter or a fifth of the amount, put it into the water. Don't give it a choice between that and water. So it's only the dilute electrolyte solution.
Okay.
It will then start to drink it. And I've done it both with individual horses with buckets and with small groups of horses drinking out of a trough. Mm-hmm. It's actually easier out of a trough because when other horses see the one that's going to go for it, then they all start going in there. And then over the course of 3 to 4 to 5 days, you just gradually bring up the concentration to the full strength. And it will drink it. So that's how you train it.
Okay.
Now, the nice thing about doing that is that often when a horse transports to a different farm or different place for competition, the water tastes different. Right. It's harder, it's softer, it's got different minerals, and it doesn't drink or it drinks less. So the nice thing about the electrolyte supplement is when you add it to even that water, it's going to taste similar to what it did back home, and they're more likely to drink it.
Yeah.
So training a horse to drink your electrolyte solution is a really good strategy that everybody should be doing. Yeah. That's going to be competing their horse in the heat.
Right.
So start in March or just continue it all year long. Just always have some electrolyte solution with some of it in there.
Yeah.
And, some people say, well, that gets expensive. Well, it's cheap compared to any kind of veterinary cost.
Yeah.
It's cheap compared to the impaired performance that you get when you're actually trying to perform at a high level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, but obviously it's not something that you can do like the day or two before you need to leave. You need to start it sooner than that
a good week before for sure. Yeah. And
so there are a lot of electrolyte supplements on the market, as you well know. And what do you recommend horse owners looking for on the label when they're trying to choose a supplement?
So it's probably easier to say what to avoid.
What not to use.
Yeah, so avoid anything that says natural. Okay, Himalayan salt, they're natural. They're the wrong composition. Horses do not sweat Himalayan salts. Horses do not sweat sea salts. All of those are salts in the wrong proportion. They're the wrong balance to replace what's lost in horse sweat.
Okay.
So the important thing with an electrolyte supplement, it has to be one that is actually scientifically designed to replace the proportions of sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, and calcium that are lost in horse sweat. If they're not doing that, then it's not going to be optimized for the horse. Right? Will it work to some extent? Yes. Is it better than nothing? Probably is, but it might not be. And because we already have some really good electrolyte products on the market, why not use those? Right? They're out there. We were one of the first people to put them out there before the Atlanta Summer Olympic Games. There are now at least a dozen really good equine formulations that are scientifically developed.
Okay.
Those are the ones to go for.
And you mentioned powder and feed or dissolved in water. There are also electrolyte pastes. When would you suggest, is that something that is recommended for horses, or when would you suggest using those?
Yeah, but generally not recommended for horses. Because unless you've trained them to do it.
Okay.
Because electrolyte pastes are very concentrated. And in the early days when these were developed, people were putting in large amounts. The horse was not drinking enough water to dilute that paste to the electrolyte concentrations that should be present. And that paste would just sit in the stomach and contribute to ulceration and gastrointestinal upset. So it's not what we want. if the horse will drink water after you give it, and the whole idea, I think, behind giving pace was that, well, it might make the blood a little bit more hypertonic, and that might force the horse to drink. That does occur with some horses, but again, I don't recommend it.
Okay.
So, if you know the horse is drinking a lot of water, then you could give the pace. So I would use a pace primarily if I see the horse is drinking a lot of water and knows it's dehydrated, then give some pace and give what you think is the proper amount of that pace to balance what the horse has consumed for water so that the electrolyte balance is correct.
Okay.
So when using pace, there's really no way of knowing about the balance, trying to get the right balance. And balance is important, the balance of water with electrolytes.
That makes sense.
Otherwise, it's out of balance.
Yeah. And my last question for you here is there any more research? Is there any new research, anything going on out there that horse owners should keep an eye on?
Yeah, so there are companies that are developing products that are aimed at trying to maintain hydration over a longer period of time.
Okay.
So they're using things that have slow release either in the stomach or slow release in the GI tract. And the whole idea is to try to maintain a smoother balance during transport, during competition, just try to maintain a more even state of hydration. I can't talk more about that because
I get it.
Yeah, but I do know that stuff's going
on. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so there's some really interesting stuff that's been done, and there's some interesting stuff that's being done right now, and the testing is going on.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing what happens there because that would be great. Anything we can do to take better care of our horses, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I thank you for that. And if you would hold on for 1 minute, when we come back, we will have our viral ideas, real horses. If you've ever stood in the feed room wondering, am I actually feeding my horse the right thing? You're not alone. Feeding your horse can feel overwhelming. There are so many options, and at the end of the day, you just want to do what's best for your horse. That's where Tribute Equine Nutrition comes in. They're here to take that stress off your plate. Tribute combines safe, company-owned manufacturing with fixed formulas and the highest quality ingredients, so you can trust what you're feeding is consistent and reliable. And they stand behind that with a 100% money-back guarantee. But what really makes a difference is their team. They'll create a free, personalized feeding plan for your horse based on their age, workload, and any challenges, so you're not left guessing anymore. They're also investing in the future of horse health through their own research farm, Tribute Equine Research and Innovation Center, so you know the recommendations you're getting are backed by real research. No matter what kind of horse you have, Tribute has a product and a team to support you. And if you've been thinking about making a change, now's a great time because your first bag is free. Just head to tributeequinenutrition.com and select Other and mention Feeding Horses sent you. Welcome back. And for this month's viral idea, Real Horses, we're going to stick with the electrolyte theme. And I know of horse owners out there that give their horses Gatorade or something similar, some human type of electrolyte drink. And my question to you, Dr. Lindinger, is that a good idea to give horses human electrolytes?
It's not a good idea. So Gatorade was developed at the University of Florida in the early 1960s to support the football players that were training in the heat and sweating, just losing a ton of fluid, water, and electrolytes. I mentioned before that human electrolyte in sweat they're a lot more dilute than
Right.
electrolytes in horse sweat. And that's because the human sweat gland reabsorbs a lot of those electrolytes. So evolutionarily, humans developed in a hot environment. And we selected, there was natural selection for individuals that were able to reabsorb salts through sweat glands. And that helped us retain that, which is really good. Horses didn't do that. They have a very different sweat gland and they lose a lot. They lose per gallon of water, they lose 4 to 5 times more electrolytes than we do. That means Gatorade, which is really good for people, I drink a lot of it, is completely inadequate. It's only giving horses 1/5 to 1/4 of what they need to replace.
Okay.
So it does have sodium chloride, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, most of them, not all of them, but they do, which is good. And those are the electrolytes that need to be in a good horse electrolyte supplement too, those 5 electrolytes, but at a much higher concentration.
So it wouldn't necessarily do any harm.
Well, it can
Right?
do harm because
Okay.
it's sort of like, if you just drink water,
Okay.
right? So
Right.
Gatorade is for horses drinking Gatorade is just slightly better than drinking only water. You will dilute the electrolyte concentrations in the body fluids, and the horse will sense that as a volume overload and start to dehydrate even more.
Okay.
So it's not a good option.
All right. So best not to do it. Drink your own Gatorade.
Yes. Drink the horse Gatorade.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Lindinger, for joining us today. I know I learned a few things and for talking to us all about electrolytes in horses.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. It was my pleasure. I really hope people start taking this to heart and really looking after their horses with good equine electrolytes.
Definitely. Well, hopefully this helps. And so thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
That's it for this episode of Feeding Horses, sponsored by Tribute. My thanks to Dr. Michael Lindinger for joining me. If you have any topics you would like to learn more about, please reach out to us on social media or email us at editorial@thehorse.com. Until next month, go spend time with your horse.